In this session, we will talk about various avenues for monetizing content in the emerging markets, the challenges broadcasters faced, and the innovative approaches being adopted to capitalize on this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our moderator, Joydeep Biswas, CEO and co-founder, Rockfed Films. Mr. Biswas. I now invite Mr. Sharad Patel, founder and chairman, managing director, SP Cinecorp, and Ms. Gayatri Guliani, founder and CEO, Kilos Entertainment. Mr. Biswas, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce you to our two panelists. Gayatri, allow me to introduce a media maven of unparalleled stature with over 25 years in the industry. She has forged impactful partnerships with Sony Pictures, Disney Star, Reliance, Viacom, and Lionsgate. She's distributed over 55 films and sold more than 2,500 hours of content globally, pioneering new markets for Indian cinema in China, Taiwan, South Korea, Morocco, Spain, Egypt, and Russia, where she was recently honored by the cultural minister. Her accolades include Global Woman Leader, L'Oreal Wonder Woman, and Woman of Excellence. She is a distinguished and core team member for high-profile forums like Davos Worldwide. She's produced the first ever Taiwan-India co-production Demon Hunters under her banner Kleos Entertainment Group, featured as one of the top projects from Taiwan at Cannes 2024 by reputed Hollywood publications Screen International and Variety. We did an exclusive feature for her for its uniqueness. Please join me in welcoming her. Let's give her a loud warm
Thank you.
Claps. Our next panelist is Sharad Patel, founder, chairman, and MD, SP Cinecorp, Cinematic Venture Limited, producer of national award-winning political thrillers, The Tashkent Files, Gujarati blockbuster Chelo Divas, critically acclaimed Bollywood film Buddha in a Traffic Jam, Gujarati tragic comedy Vikida Vargro, sorry for the pronunciation, Gujarati slice of life Bachubai. Passion, dedication, values, respect, these define Sharad Patel's vision of life. Visionary, content producer, entrepreneur, real estate developer, tech entrepreneur, fashion week organizer, and more. Please put your hands together for Sharad Patel. So we'll quickly dive into a couple of freewheeling questions. So basically, monetizing content in emerging markets. So a monetizing strategy serves as a well-structured plan to generate revenues for platforms and content creators, right? So how does a streaming platform or a content creator approach this right from the onset? This is for both of you all, so you'll take it one at a time.
So honestly speaking, I mean, like all the content creators might agree to it that every platform keeps on saying that they're bleeding money, right? But the fact is, every now and then you see new platforms coming up. So definitely there is money, right? And they are definitely monetizing. Obviously, one of the way of monetizing that we know is about the subscription and even the ad revenues, right? But there is definitely a larger consumption. There are a lot of side revenues in terms of clipping rights, which are really making revenues. But to be honest, as an audience or as producers or as makers, you are not having an access to the real side of how the platforms are really monetizing and what are the balance sheets.
Right.
Right? You only come to know that they are in minuses.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. To take it forward from your conversation as well, what is also interesting is that usually when we go to meet the platforms and everything, the first question is that we ask, as a content creator, the conversation is like, what is the kind of genre that you're looking at? What is it that actually giving you and everything? And you will get always a very vague answer to that. They will say like, no, good stories. And then if we were to ask what are good stories, it would be like, one which connects. Now, it's a very vague and ambiguous space as such.
Right.
But in that portion also, even if you're looking at a genre or something, unless and until you don't believe in what, you're pitching and how you're pitching, then they smell it also.
Right.
They smell it. And apart from that, it's only they who know, because I've been selling to practically all the platforms, like films and all kinds of content and everything. What is interesting is that we are never exposed. Like today, everyone knows at some point of time that if a film is done well, what is the box office, right? So it is all out there. But nobody knows that if, like for instance, as a content creator, when I was working with Sony, I have sold films and like Padman, 102 Not Out, and Loop Lapeta, and all of them. Now, when we go back to them and ask like, okay, can you tell us how it performed, you would never get any kind of data or anything as such.
So there's no metric.
There is no metric. But when we kind of like ask them, they will say, no, it's mostly word of mouth. It's mostly word of mouth. And then that is when, if you actually see over a period of 2 years or 3 years, you're actually seeing when you open the interface of Netflix or an Amazon, you have number 1 trending, number 2 trending, number 3 trending, right? But actually it is driven by an algo again. Absolutely. At the same time, they're also pushing the content. It is a part of their marketing activity. But from a content creator perspective, the monetization aspect of is something that is very much a well-kept secret within the system. All we know is, yes, it is going to 190 countries, and it is subscriber-based model or a TVOD or something. Now, of late, you will also see a new trend that has come over last, let's say about like 2 years, where you are seeing the TVOD model which is coming up. Rent a movie for this much. So even when you're in interface of Amazon in particular. Earlier, TVOD was not generating so much,
right.
But today, TVOD is something that because of pandemic, they've used TVOD as a model. Like a very known example is Radhe. Okay, so
Correct.
Radhe of Salman Khan's movie that went on TVOD for about like they did not, they had a digital release itself, but they first released it on the TVOD. It stayed in TVOD for 2 weeks, and the so-called numbers that were floating around within the circuit was something close to about, oh, they hit 65 crores, oh, they hit 70 crores, but there is no way for where the source of data is coming from.
Right. So there's no verified numbers in terms. Yeah. So that leaves it very ambiguous, actually. Okay. So taking off from the first part of this question is basically what is the sweet spot or type of content that usually brings in the eyeballs and ad revenues for these platforms and content creators?
So, so each of these platforms have their own thesis, right? So when we speak to the top 2, let's say, when we speak to Amazon, they will say that their main thesis is our products go to every pin code. So they are more consumer driven, they are more mass driven. At some point of time, the other platform was focusing more on niche films at some point of time. But then the war began. And then everybody just realized that, no, this is a game of subscription. This is a game of conversion of subscription. Imagine 20 years ago that what television went through, it's exactly the same thing that we are seeing. It's the same cycle that we are seeing right now.
Right, right. Sharad?
I think every region has its own flavor of the type of the content. It's more language specific. Like if I talk about that, when we produce, obviously we're making various genres in Hindi. When we produce Gujarati films, if you go down south, there are particular type of the films which are well accepted. Assamese film has a typical type of the genre. So what I feel, even from a platform perspective, because now see earlier there were various options of platform. Now with the consolidation happening, what's also important is for the platforms to classify as per the languages, not in terms of, I mean, obviously there is a classification of shortlisting,
Right.
but it's still so cluttered that it's very difficult that you
It is.
still keep scrolling and after half an hour you're lost.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you know, to even add that, I must give you a very interesting anecdote.
Sure.
So I was sitting with one of the producers, okay, and he showed me something that blew my mind. He produced a Nepali film, and when it was taken to the platform, they said like, no, it's not, it doesn't align with our content slate and content indexing and everything. He said, okay, I'm going to release it. So he released it internationally, and he earned close to about 30 crores. Yeah. So interestingly, content as such, the grammar of content and people viewing content has changed drastically. It
yeah.
doesn't matter whether you are watching a Korean content or whether you're watching anything else. The fact is, if it is able to connect to the people or that particular sect of people also, because they are all over the world, right? And like I've been distributing mainstream Bollywood films, Indian cinema, all across almost like 70 to 80 countries. And when I started, it was just about 45 countries, the key countries which were there. Then, of course, the tier 2 countries happened. What is interesting is that today, content format has also extended itself apart from a long form to a short form that is giving so much of opportunity to monetize in every aspect of it. Like when we were discussing, like a simple content could be made in a grammar of a full-length film or a web series. The grammar changes, the narrative changes. But at the same time, it could be, if it has a good character, it could be merchandise. Look at the Marvels. Look at Spider-Man, look at, even Hanuman effigies are also kind of like given. And similarly, there's a possibility where you can actually extend itself to literary rights again. And that also safeguards your IP.
Smart marketing, basically.
Smart marketing. It's strategic. And then you can get into graphic novels. Then you can get into gaming. So monetization across of a content in these emerging markets is also kind of increased quite a lot. It's just that one needs to have the understanding and the pulse. Now we only speak more about, okay, it has to go to the platforms, or that is not the end. So the producer also has to be a little bit more aware when the deals are being done in terms of what is the tenure that the producer is going to give, and what are the rights that the producer is going to give.
Very important.
Because they are your potential monetization processes.
Right. So moving on, the other question is, if we look at smaller regional space in India, there are some amazing success stories of monetized content. Sharad is a shining example. Stage OTT, which is killing it in the Rajasthani and Haryanvi space, and Nojoto, a very young company from Gurugram, basically a short video content platform with currently 10 million subscribers. So what should be the right content curation in this space in terms of genre that would enable monetized revenues? Because such regional players would definitely need a push from brands to monetize their content and make it profitable for them. Sharad, would you like to take that first?
Yeah. So I will continue from my previous answer in terms of being language specific. So like I would say, when you're making Rajasthani content, right? Now brands have started realizing, earlier the brands were only promoting pan-India language, like putting predominantly in Hindi. Now each and every brand in their promotion strategies also, they have started changing as per the region and as per the language, because your tonality, your dialect, your particular language, your particular dialogues also changes as per the region that you're promoting in. Like if you will, if you're going to put the content in Rajasthan, right, it definitely resonates more with the cultural heritage and more folklore, right? If you take it in Gujarati, it's more to do with the business-oriented approach, which really connects with the people and the nuances. So I feel that's the key.
Right. Gayatri?
Very interesting, actually, because it is right now the changing phase. right? And the glaring examples I can actually give you is Munjia, Tumbad, and actually if you could see, they are completely folklore tales, and it's 3-2, right, at this point of time. It's a very big example, and it just doesn't stop in the box office and even worldwide. So the whole idea is for content creators, it is also interesting for them to understand which is the market that they are catering to. Now, if we are looking at a pan-India kind of a content, then we can actually, so these are the examples, they are actually taken from folklore and made it into a content and movie, and it is worked. Because somewhere or the other, we are still connected with our roots, whatever said and done.
Absolutely.
And particularly the tier B and tier C, they still want to connect to, and that is a humongous amount of market which is yet to be explored, and people are. Otherwise, like for instance, an Amazon Mini, that is basically targeting the person who is watching in his device, a liftman, a driver, is actually watching. And they are able to relate to the content because you have all kinds of languages, the Hindi, the local Hindi. So if you see, there are certain content that really resonates. Sometimes, like for instance, Bareilly Ki Barfi, if you see, the lehja of talking and all of that. So this definitely creates a certain traction to people. They want to go back and see, they want to relish, they want to go back to the old Delhi, they want to go back, it's there. Now, another interesting thing what has happened is that every center or every state are having localized influencers.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So those local influencers, whether if they are beauty influencer, whether whatever they are, now the brands have taken up, where they cannot afford a prime time slot, okay? They are able to connect with these influencers, and then they are able to kind of reach out to those people. I mean, earlier it was all models, who were coming. Today there are real people who are featuring in the ads. And even in movies, for the matter of fact.
Yep.
How would you then explain an Bassi, featuring along with Ranbir Kapoor? How would you kind of, Kusha Kapila in big example. So that is the kind of power where everybody is moving towards one side. There is a pan India, there is global, but the other side, we are going more and more deeper towards the deeper towards the remotest of areas and languages.
Yeah. So
I'll share you my example. When we made Cello Divas, one of the biggest reason and success of Cello Divas was, we have seen many college stories. I mean, it's a right stage to say that. If I really say, my film Cello Divas didn't have a story.
Oh.
It was just a journey of 5 friends in college, right? And what we had showed was, there are very typical dialect that we use in the college. Right, a North college and North guys would be using a very different dialect. A Gujarati college would be using a very different dialect, right? So all of the people, we had a repeat audience because क्या होता है कि आपका एक स्कूल का एक ग्रुप है, एंड आप अगर देख लो तो हर एक ग्रुप में 5 ऐसे लोग होंगे, एक पढ़ाकू होगा, एक आवारा होगा, एक हैंडसम होगा, एक एकदम बदसूरत होगा.
True, and we've all experienced it ourselves in our college days. So yeah.
So we had like repeat because people started going with school group, then with the college group, then with the work group. So there was a repeat audience of almost 5 times. And the relatability was कि यार अरे हाँ मैं भी ऐसा ही बोलता था, देख ये ऐसा ही है. So that relatability of local content really helps.
Which we see now that it's coming into play. But even then we were talking about folklore. So coming back to that, just wanted to add a little spin to it. In terms of, there have been successful folklore films. But predominantly, from a storytelling point of view, there is still a struggle. Despite the fact that there's so much of folklore and India is such a rich cultural country, why is that so? Is it because of the lack of will of makers? What is this? What is the reason behind it?
One word answer for me is conviction.
Right.
Right, because again, like Gayatri said before, that just the OTT platform, that going to a platform is not the solution.
Correct.
As a maker, earlier, why films were successful earlier, and I see those times coming back. If you now see, all of the independent, I mean, obviously the COVID phase has done great digitally also for the digital world, but at the same point of time, it has done bad also for the independent makers. Because the dependency on one-sided, it became very one-sided in terms of dependency. But people were happy before working because of the independent makers, where you was actually seeing great stories coming out. And that's the need of the hour. That's the reason why films films are failing these days.
True.
Where is the conviction? It's 10 people conviction. Film cannot be made with 10 people conviction.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
films cannot be made on Excel sheets.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Why you both are talking about content monetization?
Monetization. Yeah. I think, sorry. So I think, taking from what Sharad is saying, I think faith and belief is very important. Otherwise, I mean, yes, there are examples, current examples also what we are seeing. Now there are other reasons also, Joy, where let's say the film, the story could be great, but it is a combination. There is a certain checklist which one has to go, because the color of the money is the same.
Yep.
Whether you make a good film or a bad film,
True.
the color of the money is the same. So, so you may have a great story, but if your narrative and execution is bad, then people are able to see through it completely.
True.
And if, let's say, if the narrative is good, or even if the execution is good and the story is not, people can see through that as well. And there are glaring examples that we can see where, such big stars and such big, and technically it's so good and all of that, and still not done very well in box office.
True.
So I think it's a combination. I think awareness is important. Number 3 is, who are the target audience? That is the most important thing. Who are we communicating to eventually?
Right.
Whether it's family, whether it's like, whether it's for youth, or or whether it's for kids,
Right.
or who are we communicating? I think once at the drawing board itself one has that understanding, then it's the half of the battle is won.
Right. Right. Okay. Moving on. Now let's come back to the content creators. There's a lot of cross-culture content that is happening, but that's happening from a co-production perspective. I don't see that happening from a content creator perspective. So what should be the approach, according to you all, for Indian content creators to create and engage in cross-cultural content that can bring in the additional revenue for them, especially in the emerging markets? Guys, you want to take that first?
I think the first step is story.
Right.
So, so the example that I can do is currently the film that I'm doing. The first thing was, we wanted to get our story correct, the characterization correct. Usually for any cross-cultural, the usual trope is, plenty of films have been done, boy meets girl, a girl is in love with this boy from different culture, and then the girl takes the boy to the parents, and then they have this culture and they are throwing into all of that. So we were very clear when we were doing our movie, we were very clear that we do not want something like this at all, because then it is just 1 in a million. So what is it that we came across? So we said, okay, let's pick up a buddy comedy and do a little bit of research as well. What works in the market, what works, more from a universal perspective. And buddy comedies have always worked, at some point, whether it's Main Khiladi Tu Anadi, whether it's Rush Hour. If you look at it from a global perspective,
True.
Bad Boys, even in terms of, even Hindi films also. The biggest one, Sholay. I mean, who can
Absolutely.
forget that?
Absolutely.
It is actually a buddy film. And so that is something. So do your research in terms of a content. Okay, a little bit of it, of what works. Is there a universal resonance to that? Then, of course, how you're melding the culture. That's important.
Right.
So when you're doing from a content perspective, again, it goes back to the drawing board of the story. So once you have the story, then you parallelly, from a production perspective also, and from monetization perspective also, see what are the markets that it will resonate.
Right.
Which is most important. There are some, it is not necessary that all the films work very good in all the markets globally. But yes, every film has got a market. That much I can tell you in my little selling experience.
Sure.
Even from a festival film to everyone, there are people who like niche film. So if you're looking at a European side, they like the niche film. They are like the noir and all of that. If you look at the Southeast Asian side, they love horror. Your Indonesia, your South Korea. So these are the kind of little research really helps a long way into planning your monetization process as well. Then to each market also one can customize, okay, now I'm going for a global distribution, my home market. Now there has to be one home market for collaboration.
True.
That one home market is the main market. That's where your country of origin happens. Your co-productions can happen between two countries, but the proportion of the co-production also matters. If it is 70% here or 30% here.
Absolutely.
So all of those things. Because that also helps you to plan better when you are looking for incentives, when you're looking for subsidies
Right.
and your tax rebates.
Right.
So that is one separate, as a producer you plan. But apart from that, from a monetization perspective, to each market you can actually take and say, okay, hey, you know what? My film extends to a comic book. So I will look at Japan and I will look at manga comics.
Right.
You know, if I want to kind of like take it to a different thing, then probably I can even kind of extend it itself to a novel or a book or something.
Or metaverse.
Or metaverse, absolutely. So there are varied, but what is the most important part is how a cross-cultural or a cross-country collaboration, it just opens doors to an immense possibility, I can tell you that. Whether it's global exchange, whether it's technological exchange, whether it's knowledge exchange, whether it's cultural exchange, which not only extends itself from the government to the consumer, it extends all across.
Right.
You know, that is the power of that.
Right. Sharad?
So talking about cross culture, if you see India, every corner of India itself is a different culture. I mean, we have subcultures within the state itself.
Absolutely.
Right? And pretty much, I mean, India is the only country in the world where I feel everybody, I mean, all people from all different part of the world, from all the countries are pretty much there in India, in some or the other part. And if you look at one person traveling from north to south, they will have various experiences. When we are really crafting the stories, again, it requires innovative approach. It requires that that viewpoint, right? When you are crafting the stories, if we really craft the stories from the viewpoint of people coming from various countries and with various experiences in different parts of country, you will definitely come up with great stories, and that would be the ideal cross co-production, which
Right.
will also have traction and attraction in other countries, because their viewpoint of India or what they are expecting or what they experience is going to be different.
So can we expect Gujarat meets Arabia?
Surely, why not? गुजरात तो पूरी दुनिया में हर जगह
Exactly.
जा चुका है.
Therefore, my question on that. You want to elaborate on that a little, Gayatri?
Absolutely, absolutely. Any culture like India is so like he said, there are many Indias in one India.
Right.
Right, so there are many cultures as well, and what is interesting, the gravity of culture and magnitude of actually the culture that we have, which changes in every 20 kilometers, the way we drape the sari, the way we serve the food, and even the chapatis or whatever, you know. So we are, even to the granular level, we are so amazing and diverse. And imagine when you are doing that, a co-production with an Arabic. Or with Taiwanese, for the
African.
matter of, yeah, African, and to Taiwanese or to Singapore or to you know, completely a cross-cultural thing like in Arabic and everything. It would be fantastic because the humor is very different, the way we convey the humor and the way they take the humor. So there are so many layers that one can craft a script.
True.
And of course that opens the market even for monetization
Further.
aspect.
Yep.
Like, I'll share you an example. So last film
Please.
that we did with Jio, Bachu Bhai. So writers wrote a character which was a Gujarati Korean girl. Now a very odd character. First of all, likh to diya. Then the question was, ढूंढेंगे कहाँ से? We literally shortlisted certain Korean girls, and we were like, okay, let's give a 6 months training to you know, really make them learn Gujarati. And I was like, boss, it's going to be heavy on the budget. Nahi chalega.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we floated the audition. We were lucky. We found one girl from Surat. So this movie was her debut. Found one girl from Surat. She had created a particular look with a certain hairstyle, and she had that skin texture. She looked Korean. And she was a Gujarati.
Now that's smart marketing from a producer's point of view. Marketing
But
and
it
positioning.
created a lot of attraction.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, what are the challenges for streaming platforms and content creators in a highly competitive market, especially the emerging markets, to bring brand tie-ups and monetize this through ad sales? Like we were having a discussion in the lounge, and we spoke about the fact that do these platforms, base their content around what brands that they're going to bring on board, or it's the other way around? So it's tricky, but how should there be an approach to this from a monetization point of view?
So, so there are two parts to this, Joy. One is internal and one is external, as we
Right.
discussed. Internal, how? Because sometimes usually the platforms are driven by either subscription model, or which is, of course, one is an SVOD, one is an AVOD. Now, AVOD is something which is really taking a huge surge. Okay.
Right.
There is another one which is happening with the telcos. That's called FAST, which is basically free ad supported television. Now this is something which is a rage in US, and it is already taking a huge, with Geo and many of these people. Now all of these are ad supported. And AVOD is definitely yes. Now when the content is made, now when I say internal, there are certain associations of brands that partners with the platforms and everything, and sometimes they ask for certain content, saying that, oh, we want these stars, they dictate, in short. They dictate, and they feel that our brand will have more visibility because of a certain influencer, or because of a certain character, or because of the certain story. So that puts a little bit of a spanner,
Right.
when the content curation happens. So when we as independent producers, when we are going and pitching to them, they are not in that zone to listen to it. Because if there is a brand associated with it, if I were to go and say, like, now external part, if I go back to the brand and say, like, hey, you know what, this is what I'm creating, and I'd like to kind of like bring you on board, and what is there for the brand, and we kind of deliver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Then I go back to the platform and say, like, hey, you know what, I've got a brand now. So then their conversation will be different.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I think that's where it is, and as content creators, probably again, it's a tricky situation, but I think it's all about navigation and how we can kind of manage and do it. And the whole idea is, as content creators, we just pull in all our resources, whatever we know and whatever we can. Because content is just not about making stories. It just doesn't stop there. It's even got a lot of peripheries along with that comes, it's just not about monetization also. It's about how you create and how you make that, so that with your conviction and belief that you're kind of saying that, hey, you know what, you want this, we've got this. You know what, this is what we've got. I think it's a way of that.
Okay. Sharad?
See, earlier brands were paying heavy for in-film placements. And obviously platforms were also monetizing basis the ad revenues, right, in between the content. But I think that's also becoming obsolete now. In fact, earlier when we used to independently make films, we used to get a lot of brands as an in-film placements. But now brands, with evolving times, what's the new thing coming up, and what brands are more excited for, and what is generating more revenue for platforms or for makers is branded content. Where
Absolutely.
you get the brands at the initial stage itself, and you're making them as an inherent part of the story, which is one,
Absolutely.
then not looking out of the place, and it becomes an integral part of the story, which is very easy to do.
It is. But as we discussed, it's the will to make it happen at the end of the day.
I have to give you another insider on this. Now, AI technology, is basically, for instance, I have made a film, okay, and I am approaching brands, and brands watch it and they say like, okay, we'd like to place it over here. Now, what is interesting is there is an AI technology which creates without hindering and without interfering to the creative aspect of it, and it can actually kind of place
it,
the
yeah.
brands as well within the frame,
Absolutely.
with the actors, with everything, which is again a revenue as such.
Yeah.
So which is again, you know, AI is kind of like taking that as a taking to the next steps.
And you don't need to shoot plates.
No,
and
you don't
then-
need to shoot
and then
plates.
place the branding
They
later
are
on.
placing
It's
it.
so easy.
It's so easy, so very well integrated that you will feel that like we are sitting over here in our actual plate. You know, there is nothing over here, and then we are placing.
You can have a samosa there.
You can have a samosa there. It's not a brand.
It could be a samosa brand though.
Sure.
Because-
A1 samosa.
A1 samosa. Okay. What are the emerging markets that has a potential to be a profitable one from a content monetization point of view? So there are quite a few of them out there where the markets are blowing up. Taiwan being one, and you've already had a tryst with that market. But what are the other markets that you feel that monetizing content would have a tremendous potential and would be the way forward?
I think yes, Taiwan definitely. Again, with all of these, so I have to tell you, like, so I was the first one to take Three Idiots to China,
Right.
and it was a very strategic approach, because first I released in Taiwan, then in South Korea with almost 230 screens, and then Hong Kong. It ran for 27 weeks, and then I took it to China for 900 screens. Right. Now, the interesting part is at that point of time, people didn't even know. So it was either subtitled, mostly it was subtitled in Mandarin that we went. And what is interesting is when I went to Taiwan, when I was doing, my partners took me to a restaurant which was called Three Idiots, and that was serving Indian food.
Wow.
That is the power of content and cinema, trust me. And it had those typical bump seats, which is there, so you can actually click pictures. And a Taiwanese guy is having a pyramid of dosa, and he was like, oh, can we have more dosa? That kind of a thing. So it was very hilarious. So that's the power of, for the emerging markets, actually what is happening, it's not the markets are existing, Joy. It's the medium which is actually getting more and more visible.
Right.
Like for instance, earlier, now whenever, I'm sure everybody over here is using YouTube, right? Now,
Absolutely.
initially, YouTube is the biggest award right now. It's growing more and
Correct.
more. Now, we all know that, okay, in between contents or whatever, there are ads which comes. Now, when you're watching your content, there is a lead-in ad and a lead-out ad, which is there. So the monetization is actually getting more and more granular in terms of, like, we spoke about NFTs, we spoke about metaverse, we spoke about, so earlier there were free models, like even when in your broadcasting. So earlier it was freemium, and then it went then it was free to air, then it went to freemium, then it went to subscription, right? So similarly, the peripheries are something that are increasing day by day. And as far as the emerging markets are concerned, yes, I think Russia has emerged big
True,
time,
true.
because and that was something where there was 30 years of hiatus that was there until Raj Kapoor films were, not yours, Raj Kapoor films were done, and Mithun Chakravarti was a huge star, and I released the first film over there after 30 years, which was Mubaraka. And today, literally week after week, there are films releasing, and it's actually dubbed in Russian
Yeah,
language.
there's Ramayana that's
Exactly.
being beamed on their national television.
National television.
In Russian.
And what is interesting is there is no Amazon and there is no Netflix over there.
Yep.
So they have their own OTT platforms, which also opens another market over there. So the markets are there. So slowly there are some markets who have gone ahead. There's some markets who are just catching up. But what is interesting is there is monetization aspects and markets all the time. It just, the peripheries are kind of like changing.
Right. Sharad?
So, like Gayatri said, markets are pretty much there. I'll talk about the new type of content, new format of content basically, that is really catching attraction. It's about the short, expensive films. There are certain platforms which has episodic films, 5 minutes. But those are high budget, very aspirational, and like we see clippings, right? The clippings are getting a great traction on social media. Because of which, that's the new format that is coming up, right? We started with web series, the
Right.
long format films, short films. Now there are micro short films
short.
in terms of the length, because the consumption, the attention span is so reduced. So that's the new format that's really getting a lot of traction.
There's 600 million subscribers and viewers in the short form content every year from India. So that's staggering.
That's staggering. And what is also interesting is when you are just going through Facebook and you're just going through the reels and everything, even the content that have been streamed before, like for instance, you take Friends, okay? Friends are putting snackable content, the jokes that were actually a part of the series.
Right.
So when you're just going through that, those 1 minute, they have actually cut that 1 minute and then put it across the jokes that we all would like to see. And similarly, a lot of YouTube and a lot of Indian films are also doing that, actually. So again, the markets are there, the peripheries are something, depending on the span of attention and everything, and how you're utilizing is what matters.
Right. So just winding up, and we were at the end of this discussion. The last question being, would being an early mover in these emerging markets that we just spoke about, would be an advantage for a content creator or a producer? And what should be the approach? Should it be a head-on approach, or should it be wait and watch and wait for somebody else to make the first move and then get onto the bandwagon and then hitch the successful ride or whatever? So, Sharad.
See, I think as a content maker, it takes you guts to be the first mover's advantage. And I would always bank upon that, because that's what I've always done. I mean, with all my content, may it be Chalo Diyas, which really started Gujarati industry, and may it be Task and Files, we actually started the genre of docu-films being successful theoretical films. So I think I always believe in first mover's advantage.
Right. Gayatri?
I'm already a first mover.
That's exactly the reason. So are you hunting for a second market?
Yes.
Can we get a preview to that?
Lithuania.
Can you elaborate a little on that?
No, not as of now. But yeah, there's something which is cooking in a couple of markets. But yes, definitely first mover. You have the conviction. You have the first mover is something which is great. Otherwise, none of the influencers would be so big today. But somewhere there is a conviction. Somewhere you got to keep doing. Somewhere you got to believe in what you're doing. And if you have that in you, yes, you've got to be somewhere you've got to be a risk taker. And if it's a calculated risk, why not? If you've got your numbers right, and nobody can get 100% anywhere. I mean, everybody takes that one, that one punt. And that is what, media and filmmaking or content making is all about. It's not for the faint-hearted, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think the goodwill that it creates, that is that is most satisfying.
Right, right. So, throwing it open to the audience, any questions?
I'm Ashish. I've been in the content business for almost 25 years. OTT platforms are a white wall. They do not show you numbers. They do not tell you what is working. One fine day they'll tell you Lapata Ladies did more numbers than Animal, right? So I have been misfortunate. I've worked behind the scenes as a techie in most of the OTTs that you've heard of, and none of the numbers are real. Let me tell all of you that when they want to trend something, they will make it trend. And when they see that it's not trending anymore, then in a couple of minutes, it will go to number 10 from number 3. right? So it's all a flick of a switch. I started something pre-pandemic called DG Box Office. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yes.
I was sent to jail for 2 years because I was disrupting the subscription bandwagon. So it is still alive, and you need a OTT platform that gives you audited ticket results and no red tape for curation. When you go to Netflix, Rajbhai, I'm sorry, I forgot your first names. Sharad Bhai. If you want to pitch your film to Netflix, it's impossible. They don't have a representation, they don't have an office. There is no real bankable process. So we have more unreleased films in India than any other country in the world. Yeah, we say we make what, 1,000 films a year,
1600.
1,600 films a year, right? That number keeps expanding. How many release? How many films release? You make a film, there's no buyer. In the past, there were distributors who would put their hard-earned money and they would go to a theatre circuit and they'd release a film. So here I'm very clearly asking the two of you, with all the level of experience you've got in the world, the lobby got 2 years of my life behind bars. I figured it out. I even proved to the court that it's a lobby. Yeah, the girl who honey trapped me was from that lobby, right? So these are the people, these sharks want your content. We all say YouTube, right? YouTube gives money. How many people have made 1 million rupees from YouTube in this crowd? They don't give anything. 8,000 rupees. I made a couple of more lakhs than that selling nursery rhymes. But YouTube stopped paying after 2019 or 18 or something, right? Yeah, it pays people who they want to pay. Yeah, it's still peanuts of what we used to make. My contention here is have a OTT platform. I am shutting DG Box Office because I can't run it. I don't have the money for it. I tried to give an open door policy. Manmohan Shetty ji backed me. I mean, I'm the real old school techie. I built my own platform. I have my own video server. But the challenge is to get content and to release content. You need a technology that works, number one. Number two, no red tape, no curation. Who could say that 3-2 will make 800 crores? Yeah, we all kept harping that, okay, what will happen? Films are not working, films are not working. But trust me, those collections can be trusted. Can we trust those collections? I went to a theatre so many times, I find the theatre is empty. And Book My Show is booked. I don't want to take names of films because I'm from the fraternity. But what is happening? People are using their own money, laundering the damn thing back into the collections. So it's all humbug. We need a clean, simple, understandable OTT platform. And India has crores of viewers. We have 78 crore 5G, 4G users in India who are hooked onto Instagram. I live with 3 women of 3 different ages, 45, 16 and 10. They are addicted to the damn thing. They have every OTT in the world. They have multiple screen televisions in the house, but they don't look at anything. They just keep scrolling. That's another threat, right? So I am here again saying that with you stalwarts, figure out an OTT and a cinema system that's honest, accountable, and we can actually have no red tape. So you tell me, is it as easy as it was 10 years ago to make a film today?
Definitely not. At the same point of time, like I said, there was a phase during the COVID time where the dependency started becoming more because of the independent financing getting dried down, and obviously you not having output to the theaters. But again, with the phase, everyone again started realizing, because the true content makers who are not into this business just for the sake of rolling the money, who are into this business for the sake of, yes, making decent money, but at the same point of time making a good content and creating a great name. So all of the independent makers have now started again going independent, right? So while there are OTT platforms, while there are other channels, but at the same time the traditional way of making films, we are seeing that coming back.
Yeah.
But yes, to answer your question, like before, it's getting more organized, but earlier times were very different and very nice.
No, my question is still simple. You finished a Gujarati film, say, for
Correct.
example. We call up Vandan Bhai, he puts the film in the theatre.
Right.
What happens after that? That's the end of the story, sir. We don't have anything accountable to see the money come back in a proper structured way even today. If you are a big producer, you have the way for you. The VPF bill will come, everything will come. For a small fellow, somebody who's sitting in Surat, see, the startup economy in this country has boomed. Forget Shark Tank. Shark Tank happened now. Its startups have been going on for years and years. Cinema, entertainment can be the next big startup story. Everybody has a story to tell. I mean, what was happening in Malegaon? What was happening in Hyderabad? I mean, Gujarati films could have taken Telugu films for a ride for the money 25 years ago. We are a minuscule compared to what Hyderabad is. I have seen Hyderabad come from nowhere. Literally in 2004, for the first time when I went to Suresh Babu's office, I was like, "Kahan aaya hu main? What is happening here?" And in 2014, they rocked your world in 10 years. And where are they in 2024? So regional, Hyderabad, I'm not even talking about Tamil, Malayalam and Kannada. Just one language, Telugu. And what they have done. Where they stand today. So sir, I want you all to come up with a solution for the independent producer. Straight away, make the film, release it, get your money in 60 days. Do that. I mean, that's what I really would like from the stalwarts. Ma'am, you especially. I mean, Eros now was a breath of fresh air, but it just dwindled out from nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? So you just said Russia doesn't have Amazon and Netflix. India needs to have its own strong monetization platforms. And I can give the tech. I just need people like you to back it. Tech is affordable today. The servers have become so cheap. I can give a Kubernetes Docker server in your home with 5, 10 Gbps lines. You don't need to go to AWS or whatever. Technology is right here. 5G is here. 6G is on its way. What do we do with it? Is what there's a lot to think about, right?
So first, I'd like everyone to applaud him, that he's still standing. And it's amazing that you still have that passion. Of course, we all have to. We all do.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is that as independent producers, this is what we are trying to kind of bring back.
Absolutely.
Okay. There is a whole, everything. Like when you're saying Manmohan ji has kind of backed you and everything. I have worked for Reliance, when the whole takeover had happened and everything. So there is a system that consumes, unfortunately or fortunately. There is a process, and we've all been at some point of time in corporates and have worked and everything, and now we are on this side of it. We understand people will come and tell you what to do, but we will tell what not to do. Actually, in any kind of situation or something. So I guess belief and conviction and the path is right there. It depends on how we navigate and how we go forward, and that's what we are trying to do.
But I think the industry now needs to wake up and come up and come together and build a platform like this.
It's a
we
process.
should do that, right?
Like the reason you spoke about Telugu, I'm a half South Indian, So Telugu, okay, the industry which is there today, pan-Indian industry, I would like to call it, not Bollywood, pan-Indian industry, and the South industry. They both are dichotomy.
Yeah, you cannot compare them.
There is unity.
Yes.
The first and foremost thing is unity. That needs to be there. And then that's where everything starts.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone, and thank you Mr. Biswas and our esteemed panelist. I would now request my colleague to say some words. Yours.
Thank you, Mr. Biswas, for moderating this session so brilliantly. Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you, sir, for being a part of this session. To present Mementos, we actually have the unofficial face of Content India. We have with us Ms. Preeti Vyas, CEO Amar Chitra Katha, and you would have seen her face plastered all over the branding of Content India, so we thought it's perfect to have her join us on the stage to present you with the Mementos. Please, ma'am.